Welcome everyone to the Sunday Roast, and now I can say you're a regular now, Andrew, can't we? We can say you're a regular.
I think it's my third or fourth, but it has been over several years. I'm a regular.
You're a regular. I like that.
Regular in every way, Alex.
Well, from one historian to another. And Liz, you've brought a newbie.
Hello. Yes, I have got a little friend this week. I'm looking after my friend's dog, Koji, and he's here for a little holiday. So
Aww.
He's missing his mummy, so he needs to be on my lap.
And needs to listen to politics and all that kind of shit. Is the special relationship over? Andrew, what do you think?
I mean, it's like, the special relationship is a bit like Brexit. Nobody can really explain it or properly describe it or show you a map of it or a picture or a diagram or point out what is particularly good about it for Britain or point to any moment in history when it's really worked in Britain's benefit. And yet everybody sees it as some sort of sacred thing which we all have to sort of inch around and bow down to and pay homage to every now and then, like we're in a cargo cult somewhere in the South Seas and we've got a cardboard cutout version of Prince Philip there that we all have to pay homage to. So that's the special relationship. It is the Brexit of international diplomacy. It's pointless and meaningless. The only thing is that it hasn't cost us quite as much money or self-esteem, although it has cost us both those things, because we have, over the last 50, 60 years, been dragged into all number of ridiculous conflicts, including, most famously, the Iraq War.
At the very moment of action, at the very moment when they need our determination, that Britain faltered. I will not be party to such a course.
Which cost us lives, which cost us hundreds of millions of pounds, all because we were America's special close buddy, because Margaret Thatcher once rode around on a horse next to Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. So I don't think the special relationship really exists. Nobody in America knows what the special relationship is. It's one of those things that people trot out every now and then, which is utterly meaningless.
Did you feel, I mean, it's interesting when you bring that up, and obviously having two historians here and Liz legging it to rescue a dog in the middle of the show. I'm just thinking to myself, I remember reading quite a bit about Winston Churchill and FDR and trying to create that special relationship. But FDR was not going to budge until Germany declared war. That's when he really, I mean, he helped, but he was limited by Congress. So you're a bit like...
Yeah, I mean, that was Churchill, well, mid-1940s Britain was very good at propaganda. He trots out the special relationship thing. Churchill had written those books, which he started before the Second World War, the history of the English-speaking peoples, which I think ran to 3 or 4 volumes, which was basically an extended propaganda exercise, because it was Britain was already losing its global grip, and it allowed Churchillian people, or Churchill himself, to latch on to America. It's like sort of upgrading your Skoda to an Audi. You've got the same chassis.
Jay, what are you doing? Oh, friend! I'm not your f***ing friend, all right?
That you can carry on forever. And that's really what the special relationship was. Like so many other things, it's a hangover, really, from the 1930s and 40s, which Churchill and co talked up. I mean, I don't know how much they used the specific term, the special relationship, but that's basically what he did. He basically said, look, Britain and America have our history entwined with each other. We've done this. It's like a relay race. We've done this much. Here's the baton, America. You carry on and we'll come alongside you. But we're not in 1940. We're not in May 1940. We're not in May 1945. We're in March 2020. I nearly said 1990. In March 20, it's like an Alzheimer's test. We're in March 2026. And the global situation and everything is completely different. Britain does not need to be forever latched and linked to America because back in 1930 and 1940, it suited the politics of Winston Churchill and other people at the time. It's absolutely ridiculous. And unfortunately, so much in this country operates around those kind of parameters, with us forever looking back over our shoulders at glory times, saying that it's very much like a religion. We have to do this now because this exists. We have to do this now because Winston Churchill is on a statue on the corner of Parliament Square. We have to do this. It's nonsense. No, we work for the interests of our country and global security and regional security and our partners. We don't do things on the basis of what Winston Churchill said in 1940 because he needed aid from the United States of America. So returning to this subject with Donald Trump, Trump's expedition is not in Britain's interests. It's not in Iran's interests. It's not in the interest of the American people. It's not in the interests of the Middle East. It's not in the interests of anybody apart from the imperial ambitions of Donald Trump and the ambitions of Donald Trump to change the tack on the media, which is concentrating on the Epstein files. So that is definitely a factor of this. I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I don't think that's the main reason, but it's very convenient, isn't it? I don't think that's conspiratorial.
No, but then it's also you could say the same with the 3 spies that just got arrested, with one of them ties to a Labour MP, and you're married, and you're like, wow, that attacking Iran could not have come at a better time for Starmer, because it's completely disappeared into the news ether. Liz, I can see you're really keen to talk about the special relationship. Go on.
Yes, go on, ask me. Look, as far as I'm concerned, it's absolute bullshit. There has never been a special relationship. My father was a Thatcherite, pro-American nightmare, and my mother was very left-wing, Labour voter, Labour family. And so, I sort of had both of these arguments growing up. And my father, oh my God, he used to take us to America. And then he used to go, I'm just going to put some gas in the car. And we'd be in the back of the car going, like, look, I'm not rude about Americans. I like Americans, but I don't want to be American. I'm British and I'm European. It's my identity. And I just hate this sycophantically being in love with Americans. And it was really strong in the 70s. As Thatcher came in and the politics moved, especially as we went into the Falklands War, this sort of emotion that was put into this of the empire and being like America. And I have never, ever, ever felt like that. I don't like I also am realistic. We can't be like America. We're a small country. We're an island.
Yeah.
Can't function like America. And so for me, I've never really understood it. My father used to go to America on business a lot. So he kind of fell in love with America. And he loved Frank Sinatra. And I think perhaps that, because my parents were born in 1934, and I think that was what they were brought up with. They learned to smoke because of American films and all of these sort of things. So for me, I always think that the special relationship makes no sense. I mean, the special relationship is with Europe because geographically, as I've said, we are in Europe. But I guess the Second World War did confuse, or both world wars probably confused people because of the sort of anti-German sentiment that came, as we know with John Cleese, don't mention the Germans and the war. But for me, it's especially now, given that we're so reliant on Europe for everything. We don't have energy security. We did, up until Thatcher decided to get rid of the mines, and then they got rid of the gas storage. And so it's just mental to think that you've got a way of getting sovereignty back by actually making yourself totally and utterly exposed And America, of course, is there saying America first. So why are they going to think about Britain? They seem to think that it's returned somehow. But we're just there to serve America. So no, I absolutely do not feel like that. And I think we're seeing it now in the polling, because there's only 8% want to go gung-ho with Trump. It's only 8%. When you think about the Iraq War, when the Iraq War happened, I felt like I was the only person in the world who was against it, especially around here in a very conservative area. And when you think of that now, I mean, I think in the polls it was like 70% of people were pro to go and get Saddam, until obviously it went wrong. And now
you had the million-person march, didn't you, as well? Which is one of the big. You had the million-person march. One of the biggest protest marches in English history.
Because they didn't vote for the Iraq War, what happened was, and YouGov have reported this, that a lot of people don't remember that they did support it, because they were able to sort of forget. They weren't entrenched with that view. It was just sort of like, I'm reading on the front page of the Sun, go get Saddam, and they're kind of like, yeah, we need to go get. But I remember it was like that with the Falklands. I don't know if you remember that, Andrew.
I mean, I was a child in the Falklands. What you just said about the Iraq War is really interesting, because I happen to know the statistics on that. It was a 52-48 split. Yeah. So in what was it, 2003, I think, or was it 2000? There was a YouGov poll in 2002, 2003, or whenever they first started talking about invading Iraq, and it was around a 52-48 split. It might have been 53-47, but it was very close. 10 years later, they asked people, did you support the invasion of Iraq? It was another YouGov poll, and hardly anybody. It had shifted so dramatically. It was like 70 or 60% of people were saying, no, I never supported it. I thought it was a bad idea. But yeah, it was always bad. What's interesting, again, going back to that, how the world has changed since the 30s and 40s, is that well into the late 1970s, I think up until 1980, the vast majority of British people had never actually been abroad at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? Even with the empire and everything else?
Something like, I can't remember the exact statistics, but in the early 1970s, something like 82 or 83% of British people had never been abroad, had never left the United Kingdom. The vast majority, right? So when we were talking about the special relationship back in the 60s, 70s, even the early 80s, it's not surprising that British people as a whole might have identified much more strongly with the United States, because we had American TV on the television, we spoke the same language, we listened to American records, we had American culture all around us. We drank Coca-Cola, and it seemed glamorous, and they seemed like the glamorous cousins. I certainly remember when I first went to America as a child in the early 80s. I've got a lot of family in the States. I remember it felt very exciting. It felt like it must have felt like people in Roman Imperial times had finally made it to Rome. You know, you were like, you had in fact, Washington is a bit like Rome, but or an Imperial version, wet dream of Rome. So I can understand that. Nowadays, in 2026, we are in a different world in which the vast majority of British people have been abroad. I think it's well into the 90s in the percentile. It's like 95, 96% of British people have at some time been abroad. Most of those people have been to Europe. They might have gone to America, they might have gone to the Caribbean, they might have gone somewhere else, but the vast majority of those people. So Europe as an entity has shrunk, and we are far more familiar with it. The Europe of the 1950s and 60s was the Europe that was the source of all our woes. It had dragged us into 2 world wars. We had to go into France. We had been at war with Germany. These were sort of nebulous concepts. Now people know what Europe is, and we were part of it for, 40 years. So the mentality has shifted. So that too makes the special relationship seem even more irrelevant, even as a concept, which it used to be. That concept is now dead, because we are much more European than we have ever been, really.
Coffee. We got our coffee culture back. Got it back.
Yeah. One of the things that people would get very angry with me in the days when I was on Twitter around the time of Brexit was any mention of things like avocados. You know, if you mentioned avocados, they go, oh, latte drinking, something, you know, metropolitan elites. And they actually, that is such a patronizing attitude, because all over this country, people eat avocado sandwiches. You know, an avocado in the 70s or 80s might have been a sort of Waitrose product that most people never went near, but that's not the case anymore. I mean, it's
in the 70s, I remember actually when I was at college living in Oxford, and I took my parents to the Quatre Saisons, and that is the first time I tried avocado, and I was 18, maybe 19. And it was really an exclusive. In those days, you had cheese and pineapple on a stick, and you had half melon filled with port.
Yeah.
That was really a
if
starter.
you were lucky, Liz.
And prawn cocktail, if you were lucky. Otherwise, it was mash, get smashed.
Luxury. Yeah.
Yeah, bird's trifle. Yeah, with dream topping. Oh,
Yeah, food was terrible. I mean, and as you know, you're the farm. As you know, the membership of the EEC and specifically and particularly membership of the EU
food. Yeah.
improved our food beyond all,
And our health.
And our health. And people who either have misremembered that or can't remember it can't grasp what the, you know, basic food produce in the UK in the 70s was good. I grew up in rural Essex. We had a butcher in the village, and the food was, you know, whatever. But even the way we cooked things was hung over from the war. So people boiled vegetables until all the colour and life was seeped out of them. Chicken, you know, you put chicken in, you better roast the chicken for 9 or 10 hours, otherwise we'll all catch food poisoning. Nobody knew how to cook. I mean, again, when I say things like that, people get angry and go, oh, my mother knew how to cook. Yes, I'm sure your mother knew how to cook. And actually, for the record, although my mother is sadly no longer with me, my mother knew how to cook, and my father knew how to cook even better, because my father had been a bachelor until he was 40 and been in the army. And my father had a great love of curries because he'd actually been in the Indian Army and would make his own curries, which were exceptionally good.
Yeah.
But lots of people didn't. And basic food was bad, and cheap restaurants were expensive by our standards, and the food was rubbish. So all of this stuff totally revolutionized our lives and improved our lives for the better. And again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. That's what every government should exist for. And the governments that took us into the EEC and the governments that brought about the creation of the EU all did millions of us a massive favour. And why they didn't sing it from the rafters, I really do.
Because Cameron was a Brexiteer, I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why I get so frustrated, because the use of what they do so successfully is sort of gaslight farmers and make out that they're all landed gentry and they're nothing to do with you and we don't need them anymore. And when I'm here from a pro-EU point of view saying, the most important thing, everyone's moaning about this, and this, and the other. I go, the most important thing is food. We are an island. If there is a war, we are isolated. We have lived through this before. Like you, my grandfather was in India in the war. He was actually a cook, which is where my obsession doesn't come from particularly. My husband has been in a farming family forever. My grandfather was a cook in the RAF. And he saw the famine in India in the war. He witnessed. And so he taught us about food. I mean, we weren't allowed to leave anything. I used to try and leave, I didn't like the crust off my bread. And there was a little drawer under the table when I was there. And I used to put my crusts in the drawer. But we had to eat the whole apple, including the
This is like one of those TikTok videos where it goes, here's something only people born in the da-da-da-da understand. It was born...
really focused on food, and his family had always been in master bakers, confectioners, and they had a delicatessen on the docks in Cardiff. So I grew up with all of these stories of food shortages, and that they go, "Oh, do you remember when we occasionally managed to get orange?" I go, "Orange? Really? We didn't." And he first gave me melon, actually, and got us to eat more exotic food and curry. So I suppose my experience is different from that point of view. But as well, because I worked in Saatchi's in FMCG, my account was Reckitt and Coleman. So I worked in Saatchi's as we went into the single market. So I understood exactly what Brexit meant for food. And I was just like, why would you do this? And then there was nothing in there about it apart from promises for cheap food. And then they told farmers they could also have everything that they want. So some of the farmers believed it, not all of them. But now, and this is what I'm going to say, everyone thinks that Brexit is too much of a difficult topic to go near. If this war continues, there is going to be really, really huge problems with food because British food production has collapsed. It's not surprising. They have got an Agriculture Act which barely mentions food. They're paying farmers to take land out of production, and they're importing more and more and more. Now, if we lose the ability to actually get hold of enough fertilizer, then the only way that we're going to manage this, and if Europe's short, I mean, Europe has got much more self-sufficiency with fertilizer, but there is going to be real problems with food across the world because I think it's something like over half of the world's fertilizer goes through that strait in Iran, which is impacted. It's huge. Go on. It's huge. It's a huge problem. So when people start seeing food shortages, they're not going to be protecting Brexit. Nobody. It's always been.
But they probably will. The problem is, you have just explained that about fertilizer. I had no idea about that until we started talking 30 minutes ago. I had no idea about that. Life, politics, all of it is so hugely complicated and complex. It's like a great mound of spaghetti and you can't find the heart of it because there is no heart, because the spaghetti's all sitting on top of each other. This is the problem.
The heart is food.
Well, of course, it's still food, but this is the problem. It's hugely complicated. But we live in such a reductionist society where if you listen to talk radio stations, as I do, partly because I want to be in tune with what people are thinking. If you listen to things like LBC, some of it's very good. If you listen to talk radio, it's uniformly bad. If you dip into those things, everything is reduced to a soundbite and a topic and something. And that's how our politics is increasingly working, because they know that whereas in the old days, it used to be the tabloids that directed the news agenda, it's now often talk radio stations which seem to be communicating with the public. But it's so reduced. Here's it's man on the bus or man sitting in the corner of the pub with a pint of ale territory. Here's a simple solution. And if only we do this, it's Farageism in a nutshell, really. And it reduces this mess of complexity down to, well, Nigel says all we need to do is leave the EU and it will solve everything.
Yeah.
Trump says all we have to do is bomb Tehran for a couple of weeks and there'll be peace in the Middle East and the regime will fall and the people of Iran will rise up against the totalitarian state and create some new great utopia run by people in 1960s miniskirts or something. That seems to be those pictures that they put up in Inline.
So
this
weird.
Is what Iran used to look like. No, it didn't. That's what the elite, wealthy people, a teeny, tiny percentage of people in Iran look like in the cities in the 1960s, who dressed in those fashionable styles and someone photographed them. That is not representative of the Middle East in the 1960s and 70s. But people can't necessarily grasp that.
We know that during that period that Iran's GDP was higher than, I think, Portugal at the time. Not to say that Portugal was a powerhouse, but it's interesting that the GDP was on a level with the European country at the time.
But that's presumably down to the oil, wasn't it?
Probably, but I mean,
I used to meet a lot of Iranians because I used to teach English I taught English for 15 years. Quite a few of my students across those years were highly educated Iranians living in the West, men and women. They are very smart, well-educated metropolitan society. And these are the people who bravely tried to stand up against the regime. But once again, we've now got a situation where anybody who tries to point out any nuance that goes on in Iran, people go, "Oh, you're on the side of the mullahs." Because you're against the bombing of Iran, you're somehow on the side of totalitarianism. Whereas if you're not on the side of Iran. I'm not on the side of Iran. I'm just when I say it's probably a bad idea to start bombing Iran. Oh, we're on the side of this, and that's what I was talking about. Viz all the talk radio stations. It's reductionist. Yeah.
It's so simplistic, and it means that none of them will learn anything from history. The Americans clearly haven't. You referenced Vietnam earlier. Bear in mind that was a false flag operation. That was a lie from the American government that kicked that war off. That they've been attacked. Gulf of Tonkin incident. Never happened. And they do this a lot because the Iraq War, the second one was a false flag operation because they said WMDs and our papers got involved saying we're 45 minutes away, and then they never found them. I saw
they're doing that now. The same voices are doing that now. I've heard several times across the last few days that Iran somehow has the capability to build a nuclear missile and deploy it. And for some reason, I've even heard people say they're going to bomb London. Why is Iran, which is such exceptionalism in itself, why is Iran's number one target going to be London, or anywhere else? It's ridiculous. Yes, the WMDs was an appalling crime on truth.
Yeah. But then that's
why I stopped voting Labour actually for about 10 years. As a direct result of that war. It was appalling. Yeah.
But that's since World War II they've been pulling this shit.
Polling from Ipsos 2003, which is fascinating. 28th of February to the 2nd of March, when they said there was proof of them hiding weapons of mass destruction, 75% of Brits supported going into Iraq. And then once it was discovered that that was a lie, the support went down to 24%.
Shock.
Wow. When was that? How many years later?
This was done in 2003.
Oh, the same year. It slipped.
I cited the fact that the Americans didn't declare war on Germany until actually Germany declared war on the United States. We had an issue with the Falklands. We could debate over that on all sorts of levels, but the Americans weren't interested in supporting us. Then we have 9/11 and everyone goes, okay, we've got your back. And Tony Blair basically does a blank check move. Whatever you want, you've got it from us. And then it turns out the whole thing was a fucking lie. And it's like, what the fuck's going on? But it's not cool to go around lying to people to then kill and murder people.
Because it began really the migration, really upticked the migration, which the people that support the war are against. And they can't seem to connect the two things. And it really...
Yeah, people can't... It's the pile of spaghetti thing again. People don't see the connectivity between these things. They just think, Starmer has caused this. Has caused this. They can't see the interconnectivity of it because we are
we need to be
anti-complexity society.
British coastline stopping boats getting in here. It's kind of like, do you realise how much coastline there is in Britain?
Yeah, I know.
That's insane.
Dumbassery has taken over. Yeah.
It's just nuts. It really is, but a lot of it is because of the media in this country. That is, and we had it with Maxwell, of course, who's his daughter. Before Murdoch was really a big thing, and now we've got the same thing going on now between the media. Rothermere, who's been in the Mail forever, Murdoch, and now Paul Marshall, who's building his own empire. So with GB News, and he owns Spectator and Unheard. Who he's always got Maurice Glasson on there, who I absolutely, he's in the wrong party, that guy.
But isn't it, I'm finding something really interesting with this, which the media haven't cottoned on to. A lot of the right-wing media are going, go and attack him, get rid of him. And you're right. What you were saying, Otto, you get this weird juxtaposition where people are going, "Oh, don't you want that evil leader to be killed?" And it's like, yeah, like I've got that. That isn't the problem. But then you're going, well, can't you just say? Then this is something that's been going around for a few decades within academia. A lot of these leaders could be tried for war crimes. If it was to be applied to them, you could probably apply it to almost every single US president, and now you can include Trump in that, who is also completely shot his base by doing this. You've got senators on the Democratic side saying Israel's been trying to get America in for 40 years to a war with Iran, and every president has said no because they're not stupid.
Your thoughts on Secretary Rubio saying that the reason that we struck Iran is because Israel was going to do it first? I mean, why are we basing our foreign policy on the impulses of another government?
Israel has been trying for 40 years to get the United States to attack Iran, and every president of the United States has been strong enough to resist that. Donald Trump is the first guy who got manipulated into sending in our warfighters.
How'd they manipulate him? Is that money? Is that blackmail? What is it?
We don't know, but we know for sure that Netanyahu led and Donald Trump followed.
And Donald Trump is stupid enough to just follow them and go, yeah, okay, I'm going to throw my weight behind Israel and we'll go and blow it up. Then you've got the media going and supporting this, and it's the right-wing media, but you don't have it on social media. And you've got a huge, huge pushback. Nick Fuentes has just gone, fuck, and he's like a massive podcaster in the US. Fuck the Republican Party, fuck Trump. You need to destroy them in the midterms. Do not vote Republican, vote Democrat. These fuckers are embezzling money. This is what he's saying. They're embezzling money. They're hiding the Epstein files, and now they're committing illegal wars. And you're going, fuck. Wow. And then you had Marjorie Taylor Greene going,
and we're a year in, and we're in another war, and we've got American troops being killed. I think it's time for America to rip the Band-Aid off, and we need to have a serious conversation about what the is happening to this country.
But you're just going, I don't think they've quite clocked that the mainstream media has had a significant change with social media. And actually, Starmer seems to have clocked this and gone, the papers aren't, I think it was 8%, is it 8% support? Sorry, I just asked, is it 8% support for the war at present?
That's what Liz said, yeah.
That's what Liz said. Sorry, Andrew, what are you going to say?
Well, either Starmer or the people around him. Either way, the government, which has been lackluster and insipid, has actually done the right thing by not backing America in this war.
Well, and apparently it's Ed Miliband who turned the cabinet around, not...
Yeah, but here's the other thing. We've become so, in this country, we've decided that it's a presidential country and, there's a cabinet. Another strength of British democracy is that it's not one person like a lunatic making decisions like Donald Trump. It's a group of people around them. Again, if that's perceived as weakness, then please give me weakness, because I don't want one lunatic making all the decisions in this country and everybody falling and going along. If Starmer was convinced by his cabinet or Ed Miliband that this was the right course of action, and they had a discussion like clever, intelligent, civilized people do, and Starmer came to the conclusion that that was the right path forward, this is to be celebrated, not criticized. But again, in this country, people can't seem to grasp that. So if you want a Donald Trump running your country, by all means, world, go and live in America, yeah? I'm quite happy here having a slightly insipid government making decisions through discussion and coming to the right one for the benefit of this country. Vis-a-vis the war, it is a doomed endeavor, because they are consistently saying that they are not going to put boots on the ground, that they are only going to do the bombing campaign, and that somehow the people of Iran are going to rise up like the Ewoks at the end of Star Wars and sort of seize control and bring democracy to Iran. That is not going to happen.
I was just going to support your point, which is quite interesting. The locations that they've targeted are cities, and the biggest rebellious part of the Iranian population are based in the cities. and they're doing a bombing campaign again, and all that's going to do is make them go, oh, so the Americans are evil. Because like you're going, this is, and again, it comes back to they've learned nothing from Afghanistan, they've learned nothing from Iraq, they've learned nothing from Vietnam. It's 50 years of learning nothing
from Cambodia. Yeah.
But it makes you then go back to what the President of the United States, Eisenhower, said. Is this just a military-industrial complex that has gone, hey, I've got a great idea how to make money. We make America go to war with all these countries every so often, and then we get a load of cash off the top of it.
I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
And it makes you wonder, like, those there's actually two things to that. It makes you wonder what those right-wing British newspapers are doing. Who's actually, we have a rough idea who it is. Are they also getting advertising from military-industrial complex? It's possible.
I think you're saying conspiracy, where really there's just abject stupidity.
It could be both, though. Like,
both things could be going on. Both things could be going on. But we must never underestimate the power of abject stupidity. Yeah, no. And the fact that Trump believes his own myth. He believes the art of the deal stuff. He's got the attention. I would normally traditionally say the attention span of a goldfish, but I learned 2 years ago that goldfish actually have a very good attention span.
A gnat, then.
Let's say the attention span of a dead goldfish. Yes, he's got the attention span of a dead goldfish floating at the top of the little bowl and with the child crying next to it. That's the attention span Donald Trump has got. And so he's not interested in detail. He's not interested in that stuff. He's not interested in the fact that in 100 years of air-to-ground warfare, nobody has ever successfully toppled a nation by or won a war just through an air campaign.
Yes, they have. There's one.
Oh, go on.
Holland.
You're going to say Kosovo.
Holland capitulated to German bombing. That's the only example I can think.
They did. I can't remember exactly what happened in Holland, but I'll give you another counterexample. Something called the Blitz, and something else called the Battle of Britain. So there's all of these right-wing people who are going around going, why can't Starmer be more like Churchill? Yeah. The most obvious example of a country trying to bomb a country into submission so that it goes to the peace table or gives up is that. That's exactly what the Luftwaffe were doing. They weren't trying to actually invade Britain. They were trying to cause an uprising among the right in politics in the UK that would sue for peace. That's what they were trying to do. They knew they couldn't invade Britain in 1940. This is one of those great myths. There's a book about this that's been out.
Link in the description. You'll see the book on the side there.
Please don't make me reach for my book. But that's what they were trying to do. So the Battle of Britain, where Germany gave up and switched to bombing cities, which became the Blitz, that was the tactic. They were doing what Trump is trying to do in Iran now. They were trying to bomb the country into submission so that people would kind of, not that the people would rise up, but that the politicians would go, oh, we need to sue for peace with Germany because we can't take this anymore. That was their strategy. And it failed. Because it always fails.
Yeah.
You nationalize, you make people nationalistic, as happened in Britain. You make people go, screw you, and they're much more likely to go the other way.
Which is what's going on in Ukraine as well, in a large part of it.
Yes.
The country becomes resilient and opposed to the invaders. Yeah.
I'll push back slightly on the conspiracy theory stuff. I've definitely got the clip of Eisenhower saying the military-industrial complex is a huge issue. I can't say about much else after that. He's the only president that's come out and said it, and he said it just before he left office. We can't argue over the Gulf of Tonkin incident in Vietnam. They deliberately lied to the public and said that that's an issue. We can't. I think we're all in agreement about
that was red fear, wasn't it? That was a proxy war, essentially. I mean,
Are you
what
about to
happened?
plug my book there?
I haven't got a book to plug. This is unfair.
Well, find one, Liz. Find one.
Or you can plug the mug.
Oh
No,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
haven't got the mug actually. Sorry,
The
I get the mug.
Chinese War is fascinating, but complex.
Gotta get it. That's amazing. But the other thing is with this conspiracy theory stuff, and the most fucked up thing about it is Epstein. You had tons of this weird shit being kicked around about Hollywood pedophiles. There's Corey Feldman and his accusations. There's Jim Carrey and his accusations about Hollywood. Then it turns out Weinstein was doing that. And then you've got Epstein in his ring. And you cannot argue that Trump hasn't covered that all up. It's like one of the biggest conspiracies of that generation. And you're going, this is really like the unfortunate thing about what Epstein has done and the way that Trump and his administration have reacted to that is that it's almost put almost all conspiracy theories on the table, because you're going, people were warning about this. No one was paying attention to it. And then it turned, because we thought it was a crazy conspiracy, it can't be true. Like, what was it? Eyes Wide Shut? You watch that and you go, oh, that's a crazy fantasy movie. That can't be real. And then it turns out there seems to be some massive elite ring.
Yes,
that's trafficked thousands of girls. Go on, push back on me. Tell me I should stop thinking like this.
We must be careful because
yeah,
they traffic it right. So Epstein is a sex offender on an industrial scale who trafficked women. Powerful people were in his circle. We have two things there, which we also have with Jimmy Savile. Just because somebody is approximate to someone, it doesn't, or is photographed standing next to them. And I'm even going to stretch this to Trump. If it was just a couple of photographs of Trump standing next to Epstein, Epstein is a very powerful person who implanted himself in among the rich and famous in America. Out of his money and his influence and him promising, and that's how he built up his network.
And then I'll go. The problem with that, and what has exacerbated the problem even further, is like Elon Musk saying, "I never went to the island," and then you get the emails out, and you go, "Oh, so you did go to the island." Now we know you're a liar. You've got the head of commerce going, "Oh, I met him once with my wife at his house. He was a real weirdo, so we decided never to see him again." Then it turns out in the emails, actually, he went to the island with his kids. You've got Sarah Ferguson saying, I got rid of him, and Prince Andrew saying, I got rid of him, or Andrew, formerly known as Prince, saying that he disassociated himself. And then it turns out he has. Then we've got footage of Andrew saying goodbye to a young girl from Epstein's New York house. And you're going, okay, that's really incriminating. But then it gets worse because the Met are going, oh, there's no evidence that any of this happened. And you go, Channel 4 put forward a video. Oh, I can't remember what it was. I think it was literally about 6 months to a year after Andrew's BBC interview, going, we found 6 girls that say they were trafficked in the UK and we reported it to the Met.
An investigation by this programme into the notorious sex abuser Jeffrey Epstein and his alleged partner Ghislaine Maxwell has found multiple claims that the pair targeted, groomed, trafficked and sexually abused at least half a dozen young women in the UK over a 10-year period.
And nothing's happened. But it gets worse than that, because the Met said there's nothing to investigate. Well, it turns out there is, because Mandelson and Prince Andrew have just been arrested for handing over what appears to be trade and or state secrets over to Epstein. And you're going, fucking hell. Like, if you guys couldn't cover this up, you shouldn't have covered this up, but you've just added to the conspiracy theory shit. Because
and this is the problem, Alex, and this is where we've got to be careful. Everything you've said, the scale of this, the scale of the abuse, the involvement of creepy men who are rich and powerful is horrendous. The one thing and there is a conspiracy at play because the emails have been held back and all that stuff. Unfortunately, that in turn, the real conspiracy, which is sitting in front of our eyes, which is a conspiracy of power, of wealth, and mass abuse against young victims, almost all girls in this situation, many of them very young, is that's the crime, and that is the crime scene, and that's what needs to be investigated fully. And people have to be subpoenaed and brought in and done whatever to find the truth of that. The one thing that sets me off slightly is when we start saying, and lots of people are saying this online, that all those years that people were, the QAnon people and the sex conspiracy people were, and the Pizzagate and all that stuff, were saying that was going on. Oh, they have a point. No, those people still do not have a point, because those people, almost all of them, are anti-Semitic people who have bought into the Adam Weishaupt Illuminati conspiracy theory, which again I have written about, which has been going on for over 200 years, and which is anti-Semitic to its core, and which has blood libel and all of those things tied into it, as the QAnon thing did. So we have to be very careful. I would not pollute the reality of this terrible crime conducted on a terrible scale, and this abuse, with conspiracy theories from the old days, which are drenched, I'm afraid, in lies and anti-Semitism. And so we mustn't poison the well of these real allegations and these real events with, the people in the past who said there was a great big sex conspiracy theory, right? Because that's what I'm saying. There's the one thing we have to be wary of doing.
I agree with that, and I try to stick with the facts. But the problem is, they have a significant number of very influential people have been caught lying, and then then you go, right, so you are not credible at any level, and that includes the president of the United States. And you're going, shit, like JFK, not JFK, apologies, RFK is in those files and having gone to the island, and you're going, these are all people within his inner circle. If the one place he could be secure from being properly investigated in the United States, it could only be the president of the United States. There's no other position he could have gone to that could have given him some cover for all of this. And look, I'll even say, Virginia Roberts has said repeatedly, I never heard anything or saw anything untoward from Donald Trump. That's one thing. She's as close as you can get with it. However, I did find a BBC video from the 1990s saying Donald Trump was doing all this underhanded stuff, and has interviews from girls from the 1990s on camera stating, yeah, he was being really weird and he kept putting on these beauty pageants and having after parties with
a creepy guy.
underage.
He's really right. Obviously, one still has to be careful.
100%.
There was also the email from Branson, which asked him, is he going to bring his harem? Yeah. So actually, I think that it was so outlandish that, and it's because if I walked into a place and it was full of sexy girls all around the place, I would not be comfortable in that environment. I mean, I would be sort of like, oh my God. I wouldn't be, sort of saying, oh, are you going to bring your harem with you? Immediately it would be a red flag. And that's what always got me about Mandelson saying, oh, well, of course I had nothing to do with it because I'm gay. And I go, well, that doesn't stop you noticing this was going on. It doesn't also mean that there were only girls on offer.
And so we go back once again to this terrible thing, which is extreme power and extreme wealth are a very dangerous mix for anybody who comes within the orbit of it, and it can make vulnerable people can have terrible things done to them,
it also brings me into the hacking inquiry, because the phone hacking, because that in itself is also the same symptom. It's rich and powerful people accepting the rules for themselves and for their gang,
and desperate to make money, because the part of that was we are
it's kind of
so
like
desperate to be
it's kind
ahead.
of like it's okay, I can do it because I'm different and I'm special, and I can, we can give a few quid to the police, and we've got friendly coppers, and so you can start doing this phone hacking. And there's also no empathy or concern for anybody, which is what we've got with very powerful, wealthy people. And it doesn't mean to say that all wealthy people are like this. It's just that there is a group of them that have got together, and they're almost got this group think of. I mean, even Jacob Rees-Mogg's father wrote a fucking book about this, The Sovereign Individual, which is sort of, we'll have a new society in the world which is free for the 1%, and everybody else is in some form of, captivity, communist controlled by, tech and God knows what. So that is the problem, and that has been getting the wealth gap has been getting greater very fast. So since we went into the single market, actually, I mean, I don't know if that was the Blairism. That wealth divide has just grown, and tech advances, isn't it, since computers and phones, and so a lot of money has congregated into a few hands. And then they're kind of like, well, we're rich and we're all in keeping up with the Joneses, with Peter Thiel trying to keep up with Musk. And then they've just totally lost sight of humanity. And that's where we are. But it probably did begin with there probably was a small number of them before all of this, before they became uber multi-billionaires. And it's just almost like the worst people have got together and created the worst thinking ever. And I don't know what the answer is, and maybe that's what happened. I don't know.
I mean, we could start by taxing the super rich, couldn't we? Or holding them to account, or saying to, like, people, Elon Musk should not.
Yeah,
I mean,
but that's why Starmer and Rees's policy on what they're doing is collapsing family businesses. They're starving them to death to help the likes of big corporations, BlackRock, buy everything up. And so that's my biggest bugbear with this government. It has been. I said to them, I supported Labour before the election. I voted for them. I actually helped campaign for my local candidate. But I said, if you turn on farming, I'll turn on you. And of course, that's exactly what they've done. I mean, I understand the farming and the food standards and what that means for rejoining the EU. It means it becomes really impossible to rejoin the EU if we diverge so much on lots of issues. And that's exactly what they have been doing. So from my perspective, I had the question, and I think I remember discussing it with you, Al, will he goes, I remember that it was on the roast. We definitely had this conversation. I said, will they do the American trade deal, or will they really, start pivoting back to Europe? And you were like, no, they won't do the American trade deal. And I was like, I'm not so sure. And then as soon as that first budget came through, I was like, I know exactly what they're doing. And then we had this massive outburst of everyone sort of saying, yeah, the farmers should pay for the black hole of Brexit and run the NHS, even though he runs the NHS for half a day a year financially. But it's also not only farmers that are impacted by this, it's also all family businesses. James Reed from Reed Recruitment. All that they are doing is this, what the Conservatives tried to do under Boris Johnson with Brexit. And as to whether we will see a change now because of this Iran situation, I am waiting to see and go forward with that.
Do you think that's going to be the downfall of the Trump regime then? Having gone to Iran, do you think that'll be the final nail in the coffin?
A Labour MP said to me, because I've spoken to them about food and agricultural policy, and I said, as you know, I've always been very, very worried about the food situation. It's collapsing. Food production it's collapsed largely here.
I think I heard. Can I just confirm, Liz? Is it correct that 30% of exports have dropped?
37% of exports to the EU have dropped.
But is that internalized, or is that down to farming production? So, like, instead of it being diverted to the EU, it's being kept in the UK, or is that down to production levels going down?
We produce beef for Marks and Spencers. Our processor is a medium-sized processor. And they didn't even try and export beef to Europe after Brexit happened because of the cabotage problem and the different cuts.
Can you explain that to the viewers, what that is?
Oh, sorry. So if you produce just one cut of, one cut of steaks, and it's all the same, then they go in one load and there's just one lot of paperwork. If you end up with hearts, liver, maybe it might be mixed in with some other meat, then that's a cabotage, and it might be probably from different suppliers as well. If you're having to mix the loads, then you've got reams and reams of paper, and it's a nightmare. It's almost impossible, which is why the shellfish is so difficult as well. So a lot of them gave up there and then, and I think that started it. But as I've said, we've got policy which is incentivizing farmers to take land out of production. So over time, farmers are thinking, I'm hedging, I'm not going to risk everything. And they've stopped investing as well since the inheritance tax has come in. So we have got a government that is running down our ability to feed ourselves on the basis that we will be able to rely on imports from America. And now the special relationship is on the bonfire. And so we need to be doing a reverse ferret back to Europe pretty pronto. But yeah, there's not been a proper audit of what the food situation is. But I know in my local area, out of all of the farms locally, 10 years ago, there were within a sort of 6-mile radius, we had 7 farms functioning. We're the only one left now. They've all either gone straight into SFI or they're just renting it out for grazing.
What's SFI as well to our viewers?
Oh, sorry, Sustainable Farming Incentive, which is it was meant to replace the food subsidies. Food subsidies incentivise farmers to produce food. And the first thing that was the most outrageous thing about Brexit, as I said, is the Agriculture Act, which didn't mention food. It only mentions the environment. And whilst we do a lot for the environment, you can do both. You can produce food and look after the environment.
But so Michael Gove said it wouldn't change, and so did Boris.
Oh, this is amazing. What are the chances? Those 2 guys who we all of us put all of our trust and faith in. They look such straight up fellas, aren't they? It's not like I invested thousands and thousands of hours of my time saying Boris Johnson is a liar and a chancer and was a terrible mayor of London and would be a terrible prime minister. Me and hundreds of others. If only someone had rung some kind of warning bell. God, those people who enabled Johnson and Gove and Brexit, I'm not a religious person because, I just don't wish the best for them.
Look, to mislead our country into being so exposed for energy and for food is there's a word for it, and they should be convicted of it. They are traitors. It's treasonous. And there is a clip of I've followed Stanley Johnson a lot because I've sat here going, why would you?
Just so we don't get sued, that's your opinion, right?
That's my opinion. Yes, sorry, that's my opinion. That's
another farm down, Liz.
I know, I'm angry. I'm serious. I'm angry because I'm like, I've been going on about this and no one's been listening to me, and I'm like, fuck me, we're at war now nearly, and we're going to be in the shit, and we haven't got enough food. I'm scared of that.
Okay, go on. Yeah,
I am frightened of it. It's something that's been living with me, and so since Brexit has happened and everything, I have studied because I had a meeting with Henry Dimbleby in 2020 when we were still in transition, and I asked him. I said, Henry, why would you put yourself up for writing the food plan? I mean, because how can you have a food plan if you haven't got an Agriculture Act that's talking about food? With Brexit, I said, you supported Brexit. You spent the Brexit night with Michael Gove. And he said, oh, yeah, Liz, yeah. I mean, that's just so easy. I mean, look, post-war policy has led to over-intensification and overpopulation. At which point, I just went, what? I mean, I had a row with him because I didn't. I mean, he just said it so casually. I said,
overpopulation. I mean, that's really that. I mean,
this is the guy writing the food plan.
Yeah.
it was on Zoom, and the person joining us was late, and we had a common friend, and he was so it was quite relaxed, and so he was relaxed with me, but there was a civil servant taking notes. I should have probably done an FOI and got a copy of the meeting, but I absolutely took him to task on the population. I said, hang on a second, we had a baby boom after the war and the birth rate has been in decline since the 1960s. That's the population problem, not overpopulation. And so I really did push him on it. But if the thing is Malthusian, that's what this is, it's Thomas Malthus, then I'm going, okay, well, Brexit makes sense then.
Malthusian theory was created by the economist Thomas Robert Malthus in the late 1700s. He believed that population grows faster than food supply. Population can double very quickly, but food production increases more slowly. Malthus argued that if the population became too large, there wouldn't be enough food for everyone. When this happens, nature reduces the population through things like famine, disease, and war. He called these checks on population. So the main idea for Malthusian theory is simple. If the population grows too fast, it will eventually lead to shortages and hardship.
Well, you want to end up in a food crisis, which is going to cause all sorts of, problems. I mean, we all know what happened in France when there was food shortages. I mean, and it turns
Brexit, like the invasion of Iran, people like us sit around trying to think, what were they thinking, assuming they were thinking. There were some people, sort of the continuity Brexiters from the 1970s, who were committed, again, almost faith-like, to the notion of pulling the UK out of Europe. Largely because they were cultists, nationalist cultists, who believed that this country had some divine right to go its own way and be a great nation and whatever, and that nothing could ever change. That is the likes, actually, of Jacob Rees-Mogg, although he's not of that generation. But people like William Cash and those people, that's what they believed. They then had to, a bit like a religion, they had to create an entire faith around it, which somehow justified the madness. It's Hananism, we could call it. They had to create a logic and a literature which backed up their completely ridiculous idea, which was never going to work and which was not rooted in the modern world.
So why would they do it then, Andrew?
They did it because people like Dan Hannan and Jacob Rees-Mogg are they're British nationalists who believe in an imperialist vision of this country and one where we are independent. They might have latched on to other interests, but fundamentally, that's what it is. They believe that Britain somehow should be going along as it was trotting along in the 19th and early 20th century as a force and entity in its own right. That's why Kanzuk, that crazy idea which Hannan lodged onto, and all of this focus on the Commonwealth and all that stuff, that's why they latched onto it. Farage too, I suspect, early era Farage too could be included in that group of people. People a bit like my dad, who I don't want to tar my father with this cloth, because my father was actually very pro-European, and although a Tory, was a very, very wet. My father was such a wet Tory, he could have been a swimming pool, actually. But my father was pro-European and all those things. My father was pro-European for the simple reason my father had fought in the Second World War and had a liberal view of Europe and the world, and was very, very enlightened as a result of it, and was the very opposite of these people who he would have hated. Anyway, that aside. But my dad did have this naive faith in British technology, British cars, that Britain was... a sort of old-fashioned imperial attitude. And that's what these other people were imbued with. And that fundamentally is why we Brexited. All those economic arguments and discussions and cases were just confetti in the rain. They had no value and no meaning. And that's the smoke screen they created to lend credence to their insanity, which was rooted in complete nonsense. And that is very similar to MAGA. And MAGA, of course, has caused the invasion of Iran. And all of it is the same. It's not rooted in logic or sense. It's rooted to a dream and people riding along making money off the back of it.
Well, I remember when I was living in London back in the day, and working there. My flatmate married somebody in the army, and so we'd often have these bloody dinner parties, lots of people in the army, and I was the only left-wing person there. You know, I was the sort of token. They used to sort of see me as a bit of an experiment, I think. So, well, Liz is a lefty, and they always used to go on sort of saying, "Oh, yeah, this country's been ruined. You know, Enoch Powell was right. They let them all in, and the only way we can sort it out is to have a bloody good war and kill them all off." And you used to, I heard all, and I used to have massive. So when I heard the overpopulation thing, I was suddenly back at that dinner table. I'm going to fight you.
Yes, and that is the logic. Also, that's the logic of so many sort of public school, and I say this as an ex-public schoolboy, so many ex-public schoolboys of the 60s and 70s and 80s, they sort of, it was all fine when my father was in charge. And, you know, very Rees-Moggian thinking, you know, we all, you know, I won't be affected because I'm living in a castle. So I think, you know, it doesn't really matter if they burn the yokel down and we'll turn it into pasture. It'll be lovely.
Yeah, which is kind of what we hear from the Goldsmith brothers, because they're always going on, so, oh, we're going to bring back wolves and bears. Then they want to go back to Henry VIII's day.
Yes.
It is nuts.
Yes.
Can I end us just on a bit of a hopeful note? Yeah. Because we've really gone down some holes.
Good luck.
Yeah. Well, Gorton, just a brief set of thoughts from you both on Gorton and Denton, because I'm just looking at it and going, that was a smashing for reform. Like, they got really hammered. Because then the other thing to that was obviously they then came up with this conspiracy theory, as we're on the subject, that somehow everyone was like taken at gunpoint to the fucking polling booth and forced to vote, you know, with no evidence. And of course, no one's brought up to them. It's the vote's secret. You can't tell how people voted, even if you take them there and tell them they've got to vote this way. So what the fuck are you talking about? So on a hopeful note, what did you think of Gorton and Denton, Andrew?
So Matthew Goodwin, or Bad Loser, as he's now been retitled on the back of his loss, is a deeply, deeply weird man with very strange ideas about the world and more chips on his shoulder than an employee at a McCain's oven chip factory in a spillage. I have just written a spoof piece for next month's Byline Times. There's another plug. I have a column called On the Record, where I do like a famous person's point of view and stuff, and I take a scientific approach to it. I read up about the person, and then I put their voice on, and then I write my 800 words. Matthew Goodwin. My theory is this: the guy got into Salford University through clearing, having failed pretty much. I don't know what he got in his A-levels, but clearly not having done very well in his A-levels, and has a massive chip on his shoulder because he's rubbed shoulders with proper academics and Oxbridge people, and has created this whole thing of, oh, this is all, it's a bit like we were saying with Dan Hannan and all those people, this is all that's wrong with the world and whatever, and then has decided, he researched far-right parties, and he's basically, you know, ended up believing a lot of the stuff he was researching, as far as I can tell, including this conspiratorial stuff about postal votes and family voting and all that stuff. He's a very odd man. Odd. And that's the word that should be used for him. He's an odd person. And we've got enough odd people in the House of Commons, and we managed to clear out a lot of other odd people. And we don't want odd people running this country. We want good, dull, sensible politicians who do the pragmatic thing for the benefit of the country, not some weirdo stuff they read on CatTurd26 on Twitter. Who's put up some made-up poll about how everybody's going to be a Muslim by next Thursday in Basingstoke or something, you know, totally insane nonsense. So if we can end on a positive note, that is a positive note. Also, Hannah, the new MP, looks like a really normal, you know, fun, interesting person with a normal background. She's a plumber who's just done it because of her come into green politics through her passion for animals and things like that, and has become a politician. And my God, give me a million of those kind of people over Farages and Rees Moggs and all their public school chips on their shoulders. Give me normal people who've gone into politics to try and make things better. That doesn't mean that Hannah will necessarily turn out to be the world's greatest politician. Well, she might be.
Might be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't know.
Might be.
Don't know.
Who knows?
She's a great communicator, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So is Zach.
Yeah.
I mean, together, they're quite a force.
Yes.
I bet, when I suddenly started noticing Zach, I just thought, oh, thank God, somebody is making the case for the left and pulling the Overton. And really, they tried to, and the Lib Dems have completely missed the boat because they thought that they could just suddenly keep quiet and hope to gain ground, and they've just made themselves look silly.
So true.
And now, everyone's kind of what this election more than anything did, I think, because people think, oh, well, bollocks, I'm voting Green. Why not? Because the Lib Dems have already they betrayed the vote. So there is scepticism towards them. And Ed Davey has proved that everyone's right to be sceptical of them. And the Conservatives have totally missed the opportunity to actually be in the right place. And Kerry Badenoch is far too aggressive. And she's just terrible. And where else you either don't vote or you go out and you think, oh, bugger it, I'm going to give Greens a go. There is, because especially, I know the people that are voting reform have been thinking that, but I think a lot of them will now think, well, actually, I don't like Trump. And Farage is completely hooked to Trump. The Conservatives are hooked to Trump. So I think that, I think there's a real possibility that they could continue to climb. And then we'll get to an inflection point when either the Labour MPs on the left will decide to leave Labour and join Green, and that's a possibility. Or we'll see the Labour Party really change direction and go further left. It's one or the other.
Be interested to see it'd be interesting to see if the war stuff and Starmer's stance changes him in the polls as well, and continue like Restore turning up as well are definitely going to erode Farage's position, which is I've said
the Advance though, Alex. Don't forget the Advance Party.
I will say this: it's
I can't remember who leads. Is it Ben Habib?
Ben Habib, yeah. Versus Rupert Lowe versus Nigel Farage versus Kemi Badenoch. It's just splitting the right even more and more, which is fascinating to see. And it was so desperate. He was such a crap loser and so desperate to come up with some bollocks.
The Labour Party really must be looking at the polls and thinking, oh my God, we need to do something with the voting system.
There's a lot of sensible Labour MPs, but I'd like to hear from them. Sometimes they come across on social media and I've never heard of this person. And then that probably...
Which person are you referring to that you're not heard of?
It's happened to me, I couldn't even tell their names. 3 or 4 times over the last couple of weeks, I've seen on Blue Sky, NP on Blue Sky with a blue tick, so it's a real person. And then I've read what they're saying about something, and it's eminently, I say it's eminently sensible because it's what I'm agreeing. These are clearly smart people. They're saying what I think. I've never, in each case, I hadn't actually heard of the MP, which makes me suspect that they'd come in 24 because I'm pretty au fait with most of
What were they saying?
Well, what we were just talking about regarding Trump and Iran and stuff, and and almost being slightly critical of Starmer, but not in a backstabby Tory Brexit era way. But personally, I think Labour needs a new leader, and I think I think they need someone with a lot more. The basic job of a prime minister is to present what your government is doing and to show the path forward to a better future, and then to bring about the means to lead the people Messiah-like to that future.
In an honest way, not
in an honest way, and to talk to people honestly, and not to be down on migrants and asylum seekers and things, which really turns me, and I suspect a lot of people, off the Labour Party in its current iteration. I also believe there are a lot of good people in the Labour Party and good MPs, just saying. So I think Starmer has got them into power. They now need to find that person who's got obviously Burnham was one option. They need to find that person who can present what the government is doing in a clear, straightforward manner, and then lead us forward to a better future, which hopefully eventually will be rejoining the EU and all those other things we talked about.
That is a nice positive note to end on. Thank you very much for that. Thank you so much for coming on, regular guest. Thank you, Andrew. I will put a link to your book in the description, and you'll see it on screen now. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thanks, Liz.
I'm off to write my book.
Tune in next week for another exciting story from the files of Police Squad.
So what I'm going to do is just sit here and eat my book while you guys carry on. It's actually a hardback. There are lots of chemicals, but I've got to get through the whole thing, so